Let me pop this thing back up here so I can read this stuff off here. Come on. Obviously mute that. I don't like doing things through my laptop, partly because it's old and I need something like not 2010 error, because that's literally how old my laptop is. Don't like it at all. But you know what? That's going to change very soon. I don't actually need a new laptop to do much, mostly because, well, the work I can do, that's not a problem. Yes, I know it's been updated. Firefox has been updated all the time. Okay. Let me close that down. Yay, go back to Facebook here. Fun stuff. I tried setting this up through Facebook initially. It just was not working. I could invite others, but I could not invite them onto the stream. I couldn't do anything like that. Yes, I will add you. All right. Alan, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good actually talk to you.
Because I don't think it will manually send it out.
All right. You're here. I actually, if I can, my phone's covering this up. Let me see here. I sent it to I sent it to him.
You're going to see my keyboard for a minute while I grab a shirt.
Yeah, you're still here. That's good. All right. Okay, good. Awesome. Good stuff. I can figure this thing out as I go because I have this thing all written down on Facebook here in the group discussion. This is a discussion that originated elsewhere. And then I just brought it over to Facebook to see who was interested. And to an official capacity, I am taking that from my personal page and I'm bringing it here. That being said, in some ways, this is a lot better. It's a lot easier doing it through my YouTube channel rather than just leaking personal things out. So keep in mind when you're on here on the stream and all that, keep the personal stuff minimum here. So, protect your identity and all that. Now, can I go back to the group here? Hello, group. How many minutes is it going to take to load up the group, I wonder? Fun stuff. As it is, I've got 2 drinks with me. One to help wake me up, and the other one is just flavored water.
Yeah, what flavor?
Orange. I actually hate orange, but if it's caffeinated, it's not that big of a deal. Okay. How about I do that? Then I can see the X. See the X, sir. Click it. Close it. Discussion details. All right. Hello. We got 4 people talking here. Awesome. Good stuff. I could probably post everything up here, but I'd rather just talk about it. I've invited a couple people to participate who are friends. I'm not sure if they're actually going to be here. You're the first one here, Alan. You're the first one
Well,
here.
well, hold on. Look, everybody has to open it up via their phone. Your invite. If they don't,
Exactly, because I
they can't
invited
join.
the like 7 people able to make it. I mean, the 10 people responded. I sent them all the invites personally. So that's why for the first like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever, I sent them all. Manuel is here. He likes talking. Um, I'm going to open up Messenger here and send him. I'm telling him I'm live right now. People are actually watching. Uh, I've always been professional in some regards, and that brings some very interesting complications aboard all of us because it's like, is this appropriate? Is this the right place, the right setting, et cetera, et cetera? Now, for the most part, a lot conflicts, and it's a fun way to try to fit. It's been interesting trying to figure out what values to apply during which situations and conversations. So, talking about adult stuff, especially in my personal like profile there, it's just like I've gotten some mixed reactions before, and it's been very entertaining. Not awkward. It's not been as awkward as I had originally thought years ago. So that's been at least somewhat of a blessing.
Mm.
Okay, so let's see here.
Mike, why are you asking such a question?
Were you talking to me? Because I'm not seeing anything being posted here.
No, Mike Oxlong said, "Do you two have kids, or are you gay?"
That is, I'm not actually seeing that question.
You have to go down and show live chat, not just the highlights.
Oh, okay. Moderation helps everyone feel safe. Yes. Live chat. I have friends who are gay. I have friends of all kinds. I think. Hopefully, none of my friends that I used to know have pink hair and all that because I've had some interesting conversations with people with different hair color. Good conversations that ended up well because the whole thing was it starts off people wanting to know that they can be heard, listened, respected, not just simply merely dumped on. And having dealt with Iraqs and other Iraqis when I was overseas and other things like that is quite the eye opener when you're taken out of your own culture, your own area, into and put into something else.
No, nobody freak out. I've got to take my nightly meds.
Yeah, I started this at 8 on Facebook. 30 minutes into it, still struggling because I was able to get it started. I just couldn't bring anyone onto the stream. Like
It
it's
showed.
infuriating. It really is. I wonder if I would have had the same difficulty if I would have like done it on because I have 2 other channels on Facebook. One is for photography, and the other one is for Magic the Gathering, which you are somewhat familiar with. But if I took this over to Facebook and just made it be a business, maybe I could have done that or whatever. Like just same name, same title on Facebook and as well as YouTube. Because right now this is only on YouTube. My friend doesn't even know the name of the channel. Huh. Okay, let me go up YouTube here. I'll pop it open here. Send him the link.
Why
To
did
be
I
honest,
get so offended? I didn't get offended, but I mean, would you like it if I walked up and asked if you were gay?
well, okay. So what? This is some random guy asking a question, probably trolling. I
Yeah, most
don't
likely.
care. I don't care about. Now wants me to sign in. Lovely.
Hold
Okay,
on.
sign in here.
Hey, I'll pull it up and see if I can link it here.
I'm sending this to my friend here. Yes, please do. Actually, that would be helpful. Please do. Yes, sign in. Bring it up. Yes, that's me. Oh, everyone saw my password there. Sheesh.
Nobody saw your password.
Well, that's okay. I know, but I'm going through my phone here, and there's like a screen thing that popped up, so I have no idea who sees what. Um, YouTube channel. I need to go to the about, get the link, copy, and then send to my friend because not everyone knows where it's at. I'm actually
Hey,
going to make that one last post there so other people know where it's at.
I just sent it to you via Messenger.
You can also post it up in the group here. Hang on. Post it up in the group discussion. Can you do that?
Trying. Trying.
I wish this wasn't so slow. I really wish that. It's also completely different on the laptop too.
Yeah, it's being really slow because I just posted it on my PC. What I said is not in chat yet.
Why is this doing this to me? I don't want to be in studio. I want to be on YouTube. Oh my word. YouTube. Studio is for editing videos, uploading, checking the statistics, how much each video. I have gone over 1,000 views on some of this stuff, but it's largely shorts. I'm not trying to. Oh my word. Hey, send me. Copy the link to my channel and send it to me on Messenger. All right.
I already did.
Okay. Thank you. You did. Perfect. Appreciate it.
I already did.
Okay. Sending it to my friend now because he was on the stream. Good. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Big thank you. Now, where is he at?
That's odd. The everybody left.
Nah. Do we have 2 viewers currently?
Everybody left.
We have 2 viewers.
Well, I'm one of them.
Yep.
Well, I'm one of them.
Come on. Once I'm done sending this out, because I sent out to Manuel, he's been very vocal, but one of the things that's been irritating with this slow laptop is it's taken me forever to transcribe the audio. The audio from the audio program that I have onto a video. Okay, who else? Chat history is missing. Enter your PIN to restore chat history. I don't know what that is.
Okay, to do that,
It doesn't
that's something
matter.
I'll explain off stream later.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Now my community groups are popping up here too. I'm not even active in any of that stuff. I've actually hid it. I hid these stuff. Now I do play Raid Shadow Legends. I can be open talking about that. I don't really care much for it, but it's free and it's fun and it's I don't care for the combat. That's not why I play it. But collecting a whole bunch of stuff for free and just seeing what I can do with it over years, because it has actually improved. It may be one of the worst free games made by literally the worst company. The company behind it is all about making money, but Polarium itself is the developer of Raid, and they actually recently sold. So it seems that the people who bought it are actually interested in growing it and not just simply making money. So I'm interested in the lore because one of the interesting things about that is good versus evil is not, it's not what it is. It's basically there's one big bad guy and you're taking everyone to try to actually end up beating them. That's the idea that they threw out there that I like. They had an evil faction. They're trying to redeem an evil faction too, which were basically ninjas and Shadowkin. That's what they're called, Shadowkin. They're trying to redeem themselves as a whole, and it's interesting. It's some good stuff there. All right, how do you hop on here? Add as moderator, sure. Can review. There you go. Alan, I'll do that for you as well. Now, can I bring you on here, big guy? How do you hop on? How do you hop on? That's a good question. I can only have one guest on at a time, or can I have more? I guess I could bring you guys on, but it's only one at a time. Okay, that makes sense. I'm familiar with that too. I can bring you on one at a time. So, Alan, since we've been here for 17 minutes here, let's actually start the ball right here. And is there anything about what I posted up in the group that you wanted to talk about?
Not sure, because I mean I read it, but I figured you'd be asking questions about it and looking for other people.
I will, but okay, so in Telegram, I can have everyone on at the same time. We talk, they talk, we can respond. Again, it's not about me monologuing. That's the whole point of the discussion here. So I just have to do this one at a time. I can't do this in a big group. This is probably for the best because YouTube has been around for years compared to Telegram, and it's all about, publicity rather than safety. Telegram is actually the exact opposite. And they recently have a business mode as well, so you could like legitimately start up a business and say, this is where I'm at, this is who I am, this is my service, this is what I provide, here's links to everything else, and you can make it work. But it's like 20 bucks or something like that per month. It's not bad. The discussion here, I'll read off the questions. See more. This is on adult content, and this is what I put down for the links down below, and I do have other links that I will copy and paste as well for the videos and stuff. When I put down 0, which is like literally the first one, healthy touching plus Christian dating, that one is a very good video, but it kind of bothers me because the guy, even though he knows what he's saying, because he's spot on with some of the stuff, it is irritating because healthy touching, how to signal certain things like, hey, everything's good, friendly back slap, that type of thing. Yeah, that happens most in like a gym kind of setting, work and gym setting, like reinforcing positive stuff. Like therapists talk about quite a few of this stuff. They have like better words than me. But positive reinforcement is what it aims for. I have this listing as touch starvation, but I added healthy touching to that as well, just because going through life not having anyone there to actually give you anything positive rather than just simply like emotionally dumping on you all the time. That seems to be a common theme in today's world with the younger guys in particular. Like with some of the guys who I've talked to, the younger men, they've been emotionally dumped on by their mothers. So I have for the list here artistic nudity and porn, Song of Solomon, which is around the whole book, love dolls, sex toys, dating / relationships, which is a minor point for me because I there are too many questions there. Other adult content, romance / intimacy, adult community. Did you have anything on there? So, was there anything of note that you wanted to talk about? I've known you for a couple of years too, by the way, because you and I ended up starting playing Magic together. So, like, it's funny how things did start off.
Yeah. I mean,
Here's
I'm
the
not
intro.
sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really not sure because I listened to the topics, I've read the topics, and it's like, well,
I can talk about this stuff, but I wanted to see if people had any specific questions on them.
not really. I mean, everybody's got a viewpoint on each subject that you listed.
I would go into BDSM on a very particular path, and it took me like 30 minutes with my friend Wayne. So let me bring Manuel on, and we can talk more about this. All right, I plan on doing so. Okay, I'm gonna bring Manuel in here. Thank you.
Yep.
How do I get this to work here? All right. No, I wasn't trying to delete the message. Crap. Oh. Oh my word. That's terrible. Okay. How do I bring you on here? How do I bring you on here? No, not copy. Not copy. Please don't do that. Oh man. Okay. How do I make this? I've never done a live discussion on here before either. Send light to. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I can do that. My question is, how do I invite? This word. Can you guys request to join? Manuel, can you request to join? Yeah, thank you, Alan. Manuel. Oh my word. I did send him the link. Okay, so he can't join. He has to download the app. You kind of have to be on the app in some way, shape, or form. You kind of do. Manuel, are you on? The problem here is I was able to get you involved. I was able to. Top chat. Live chat. Cool. Can I bring anyone else on here? Okay, I think you guys have to request. I think you have to request to do so. Phone only, YouTube app. Yeah. Okay. So I think you guys have to request. I enable that. People have to do that. They have to like request, to join. So for the most part here, I listed that off here. 25 minutes into the stream, I'm gonna put that down below saying that's where it started off here at 25 minutes. So for the first part here, artistic nudity and porn is monetized. It is unhealthy in the sense where it is not curated to be helpful. It is curated to hook people in so that they're paying for more money, more whatever, subscribing to a channel, to a website to get whatever they're interested from there into their daily feed. This isn't a one-time thing. This is a subscription type of it's subscription based. That's the reason why I have an issue with porn personally, is because it's subscription based. It is degenerative. It gets, or rather, the effects that are on us is degenerative. We just end up getting worse and worse in the long run. People have reported multiple things, from relationships failing to brains being rewired. They start looking at people differently. They start treating them differently. It's like you can't handle nudity in the way that you want to without it causing you severe issues within that particular relationship. Um, and I'm not talking about like the random person online that just happens to have a great figure that you like, great features or whatever. That could lead into quite a few interesting things. Foot worship, for example. And I've seen too many people talk about like wanting to have the hot female sit on their face specifically. I don't understand that, but that leads into body worship as well. It's to be noted that having interest in all that is fine. Interest in wanting more of something, which is completely natural. The problem is the effects that it has on us grows and it gets worse over time. It's one of those things, like I said, it either spirals out of control or we spiral out of control. I'm not sure if that's strictly linked to the chemicals or whatever, because it's like the more chemicals we have that we take, the more that we want, the more that we quote unquote need. Gateway drugs and all that do come to mind. Weed, like being one of them. The effect is psychological. Yeah, Alan, it's on person by person basis. Also, I have no idea if it's basically invite you like one time only, or if I can invite you back on here again. The Book of Song of Solomon, I wrote that down there is because biblically speaking, my Bible is actually out in the car. I have my Bible in the next room. I will go get it. It is right next to my bed. Song of Solomon. I actually have this bookmarked at 212. I do not know if there's any highlights because the Bible that I have that I try to use is from my uncle who passed away recently, and he was a Catholic priest. He was very private, very respectful, and I have to say he's one of the most godly men who I've met, but he was very quiet. He wouldn't go out there and just start talking. Like you'd have to ask him questions. He was that kind of man that was very quiet and respectful. He's like my parents in a lot of ways, very quiet and respectful. Okay, let me see if there's any highlights or anything on the book. Okay, saturated with stories of sexual escapades, secret rendezvous, extramarital affairs, today's media teaches that immorality means freedom, perversion is natural, and commitment is old-fashioned. Commitment being old-fashioned, people are discovering right here, right now, by the millions because of like family courts, waking up and realizing who they married or who they loved is not who they're actually with, and so much more that is tearing them their kids, their families apart. Commitment is needed for anything to grow, business related or personal or family or whatever. Like, this is not old fashioned. This is said for a reason, legitimately. And this is the reason why I brought up Song of Solomon is because it's available wherever there's a Bible. They actually have included this. Now, this is a side point. Why some books like the Book of Enoch were removed is something that bothers me that I may look more into, because and I had a very good conversation with Manuel about this, I think. Manuel. Send a link to your email address? Oh my word. You have to yeah, he's on here, but I don't know if I can invite you, man. Like, I'll invite you, but you have to request. You are here. You have to request access. I can't do anything about that until you request. Alan was able to. You're currently watching right now. You have to put in a request to join. And this is only a one person on at a time. This isn't a group discussion type of thing. Also, you know more about the Bible than I do in some regards. You do, so you got that expertise that I try to have. And yes, I've read the Bible and all that, like, completely. The genealogy stuff was of interest only because of certain. I did a whole genealogy thing when I was younger, and I did like a whole like 3 day to 7 day long thing that I just wrote down like everyone's name and just link connect the dots type of thing for those in the history. Like, it was amazing. I just kept using page after page, writing this stuff down. Yeah, take your time figuring it out. When I see it pop up, I'll invite you on here. Okay. So I ended up with that commitment part. Perversion is natural, commitment is old fashioned. Sex created by God, pronounced good in Eden, has been twisted, exploited, and turned into urgent, illicit, casual, especially casual, because it no longer is on these magazines in gas station in the back row behind a black protector. It's a black protector that keeps the adult content separated from the rest. Like, it is specifically geared towards nudity. That's why they keep it separate and in the back row. And if you've ever taken a look at this at the gas stations, that's all gone. I forget where I stopped at. Give me a second. Last minute to string. Yep. Self gratifying activity. Love has turned into lust, giving into getting, and lasting commitment into no strings attached. In reality, sexual intercourse, and by the way, Song of Solomon is not necessarily about sexual intercourse, but it does add it. And their descriptions of the body is definitely old fashioned, mostly because they don't talk about breasts. They use other words. I find that to be interesting too. People have not changed as far as that, but the words definitely have changed over these thousands of years. Hebrew, Greek. These are two of the languages. Aramaic, 3. There's other languages used too, but I haven't studied any of that stuff. I've been just trying to figure out how to make it to the next year, the next day, the next year, that sort of thing. Like, planning ahead, that's a nightmare at times because of finances. All right, moving on here. In reality, sexual intercourse for the physical emotional union of the male and female should be holy means of celebrating love, producing children, experiencing pleasure, protected by the commitment of marriage. So I'm gonna skip it. No, I can't skip ahead. God thinks sex is important, and Scripture contains numerous guidelines for its use and warnings about its misuse. Gotcha. Yes. Click the link he sends. Yep. Looking at guidelines. Numerous guidelines for its use and warnings about its misuse. And sex is always mentioned in the context of a loving relationship between husband and wife. This is important because when you are in a committed relationship, you're going to do whatever you can for the other person more than yourself. That's the idea of a healthy relationship. I've heard of other relationships. I would love to actually talk more about them. Open relationships, swinging relationships, things where it's like, how does this work? Now there's the rare relationship that I've seen where it's one guy and multiple women. Women can share the same guy, according to some of the men in the men's groups, the communities out there. Like women are okay with sharing. I think this is supported in the Bible as well. King David's son, Solomon, he had the most wives of any king out there. He didn't even talk much about women in, he more put down like warning labels on like how to be careful, how to make sure things you don't end up with a woman that's going to bring you down and make your house miserable. You miserable and your house and your home. He does a lot more of like warnings than anything else from what I've seen, what I remember. But putting that out there as far as like you can have multiple spouses, it's just not recommended to do so. Also, if you marry siblings, and I think the Bible talks about this, if you marry like sisters or whatever, it's gonna it mentions fighting, but I can't recall the verse. I would have to look that up. Having marrying two sisters is probably going to be a bad idea anyway for other reasons, mostly because of technology nowadays. Um, but the infighting was something that apparently was massive. It was a massive issue. Okay, where are we at here? So, intimate story of a man and woman. Yep. Perhaps the highlight of this is Song of Songs, the intimate story of a man and a woman, their love, courtship, and marriage. Also, the fact that they chase one another, they look for one another. Of course, one of them was at midnight, which I find interesting, and I never really forgot that because it's like when it talks about chasing someone at midnight, it's actually a little bit different than during the daytime. Um, Solomon probably wrote the song, quote unquote, in his youth before being overtaken by his own obsession with women, sex, and pleasure. A moving story, drama, and poem, Song of Psalms, features the love dialogue between a simple Jewish young woman, the Shalamanite woman, and her lover. Parentheses, Solomon the king. They describe in intimate detail their feelings for each other and their longing to be together. Throughout the dialogue, sex and marriage are put in the proper God given perspective. Much debate has raged over the meaning of this song. Some say it is allegory of God's love for Israel or for the church. Others say it is a literal story about married love. In reality, it is both a historical story with two layers of meaning. And I love that because it's multi-layered. It's like this is what it is, and then there's another couple of layers you can look underneath this. It isn't just simply in a literal sense. Only in a literal sense, excuse me. Okay, click the link you sent. You still figuring this out, man? Awesome. Okay. On one level, we learn about love, marriage, and sex, and on the other level, we see God's overwhelming love for His people. As you read Song of Psalms, remember that you are loved by God. Commit yourself to seeing life, sex, and marriage from His point of view, and pursuing it from His point of view. Because after all, there we go. You are there. There we go. Awesome. There we go. You are there we go. Awesome. All right, turn down the volume on your end, please. Thank you. Okay. Not much of an echo. Good. So here on Song of Psalms, what did you want to add as far as? By the way, this is my friend Manuel, and I would advise getting into personal details in a public capacity. And yes, I do plan on advertising this video here. So as far as with your church and all that, by all means, do a little advertising and stuff like this. This is meant to be a collaboration as well as a discussion. But we are starting here with Song of Solomon's.
Yeah, so it's just in general talking about Song of Solomon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my girlfriend and I, we just was going through it together. It was actually a really nice study. But in itself, in church history, it's commonly taught that Song of Solomon is all about the love that Christ has for the church, the love God has for his people. But the thing about it is that's not at all the historical context. In the Near Eastern culture, there was a lot of different types of literature that had this love poetry involved. And love poetry is beautiful. It's pretty interesting. But the problem with that we come across with church history trying to reinterpret what's already being said there is that they're missing what is meant to be communicated in the Song of Songs. Song of Solomon is a helpful phrase for the title of the book, but Song of Songs, or the Song of All Songs, is actually more accurately the title. Solomon himself had so many different wives, and so for the Song of Songs to be from him would be kind of weird, because when you read the Song of Songs, it's just one man, one woman, and they're the only people in the world for each other, according to Dr. Tim Mackey, the Bible Project.
Well, what I read off of previously was literally here in the Bible. Like,
Yeah.
I read all of that off there, and
Yeah.
I interjected with a couple of thoughts as far as certain things. Which, before I forget here, back in the day they had papyrus as far as material to write on. So books. Did they have any extra books and stuff like that? Literature. The literature that they had were scrolls and papyrus to write on, but was there anything else? Because they didn't.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, so you had mentioned that, but I'm only bringing this up as a side topic because I realized they didn't really have libraries back in the day. They had people that were like historians that stored this stuff. And then they had a lot of stories that were passed on by word of mouth. But I'm not sure if there's any other. I'm not sure if there's anything there that saved this stuff. Like wrote down history and saved it outside of like government related.
Yeah, well, it depends on where we're taking the conversation. If it's the compilation of the talk we're going for, I can answer that. But if it's just the Song of Solomon, that's another thing. But I'll pause for a second on the Song of Solomon. The Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim. The Torah, the law, the first 5 books by Moses. Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Ketuvim, which is the writings of different types of genre: apocalyptic, romantic, poetic, all those different types of other literature as well. And those were compiled uniquely out of a variety of different writings that was already written. So you have Moses writing different things for sure throughout history, but it being compiled was compiled later. So upon the return of the Israelites to the Jerusalem after was it King one of the Persian kings set them free, and Zerubbabel returned, and then the prophet Ezra returned, and then Nehemiah went to return. The 3 different returns from the Persian Empire, which was taking over after Babylon, straight back to Jerusalem. They were compiling what we know today as the Tanakh, or the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament. And so,
in addition to what they were doing when they came back,
yeah, and so all the scrolls were uniquely categorized that way. So you have history books, you have poetic books, you have apocalyptic books, you have love books, you have all of those different types of genres in there. So the Bible being considered one book is just not an. When someone says read the Bible, it's like telling someone go read a library. It doesn't make any sense. It's the genre and history of the Hebrew people. And
Well,
the compilation is a compilation by scribes, by priests, by those that want to preserve God's word. And so that's the compilation of that. That's why when people talk about the quote unquote lost books of the Bible, they don't know what the Tanakh is itself. The Tanakh itself is meant to be a compilation of what we know would be the word of God. And so, what is the word of Yahweh to the Israelite people, or the people of Judah, specifically the tribe there? But and obviously it's for every single tribe, but the tribe of Judah was the one they were looking for a messianic king. And the Tanakh is always that story pointing to the messianic king. The Torah establishes the law. The Nevi'im, the prophets, are speaking of this everlasting kingdom. And then the Ketuvim, the writings, the poetry books, are all about how this messianic reign is going to be. And so we're carrying that biblical story forward. And you have books like
Well,
the book of the Maccabees and other books like that. But those books, just like any other books that we have in history, or history books that are helpful for our own understanding about our culture or our past. So for the Hebrew, the book of Enoch, the book of Maccabees, those are books that help them understand their own Hebrew past. But they were never understood as part of, instead of just their telling of their history, it was never understood to be as the same lineage or same categories, if you will, as so was the word of Yahweh, the oracles of the sovereign God to them as the books that were compiled in the Tanakh.
the reason why I was bringing all of this side topic up here is because in today's world we have a whole bunch of media. We don't just simply have books and paper to write on. We have social media. We have internet and all forms of it. Because I know there's at least two. There's at least two different forms of the internet out there. I don't want to go into it, but there's one that's available to the public and one that's not. I don't know how that interacts with other aspects, but I'm throwing that out there is because we have books, audio series, podcasts, audio series in the form of like CDs. I still use CDs from time to time. I don't want to go into the personal collection, but the audio Bible I happen to have, but I don't remember who wrote it. I don't remember who was producing that, but I don't use cassette players, but I know other people do. They have that. The iPods, MP3 players are probably still around, but I don't think anyone uses them. So we have that alongside books and stuff like that. Back in the day, I think all they had was papers and scrolls, to my knowledge, as far as storing text, storing information, history, all of this stuff. Everything else, I don't remember. I would have to look up. So that's a side topic as far as when it comes down to like this here, passing stuff on here. Song of Solomon just is one of the only things that's written down here that's been around for hundreds of years at this point, probably thousands. This is old. This is not new. This has just been around for a long time. But yeah, as far as Song of Solomon, was there anything else to add on to this?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to mention about Song of Solomon that was on my mind, it's in light of like the composition of the literature. So it's poetry for love. It's, if you want to look at it from its context in the Near East, compiled to other romantic literature, this one is the only thing that's unique about it is it's the Hebrew writing of it. It's not the I guess Babylonian or Canaanite writing. It's a Hebrew writing, and in that Hebrew writing, you have this romantic idea of these two people that are either engaged or young in their relationship, and they're just gawking over how amazing and they're loved with one another. Like the introduction, chapter 1, verses 2 through 7, you have the introduction to two lovers. One of the main themes you see in there, you see seeking and finding. Another theme you have the joy of physical attraction, how that's a great joy. You have this conclusion, chapter 8, verses 6 through 14, about love is life giving, but also destructive. It's a powerful force. And it ends there with like the whole running away with your lover, running away with the one you love, and it just ends there. Kind of interesting how it's just laid out. That was my only thoughts about the Song of Solomon being a book about love and sex, and it's a beautiful thing that God created for us. Uh-oh. Everybody still there?
You still hear me? I
Yeah.
was talking through the whole thing. Did you hear any part of that?
You froze for a second.
Okay, so when I have to be on the app here, or else it'll freeze. I cannot communicate. I just said I was posting the link to the Facebook here because I didn't do that. I just posted up to the group. If you can, please go there and share it. Comment, comment, and share it as well, please. This is a group effort here, and I know it's getting late and people are probably getting ready to go to bed. My parents are probably going ready to go to bed as well. Like people have a set cutoff line. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock is around that time too. And the fact that it took an hour to get things set up here, I think some of that is to be expected because I've never done this thing before, and this is Facebook has its own limitations that are different from Telegram, which I am familiar with. I've been on Telegram for like ever since 2019. Let me put it that way. It has grown, but I can actually hold a group discussion there. I can. I was debating on whether or not to go there or go here. Officially speaking, this is tied up to everything that's already set up. I don't need to do any other additional setups. It's just simply how to send the links out and all of that. Anyway, as far as Song of Solomon, it talks about healthy touching, intimate touching as well. And I put that down under touch starvation, healthy touching, which I added earlier today because the importance of this is actually crucial. And yet, so very few people talk about this. But when they do talk about it, it's like what they don't have or what's breaking them. Women complain on Instagram. They complain on other places about not getting attention, not feeling like they're neglected, which is different than the young men where it's like it's an emotional dumping, and that kind of bothers a lot of people. For some of the women who I've seen post or men talking about other women with personal experiences, it's like it's all negative. So young men do the emotional dumping because they don't know how to layer, they don't know how to say to present their issues in a way that is normally that's more normal, tolerable, acceptable, and it almost never happens, which is why it's almost always an emotional dump. Healthy Gamer GG, I think, is his tag here on YouTube, and he's a therapist, kind of like Jenna K. I am Jenna K. I think that's her channel's name. She's actually friends with me on Facebook too. Um, Therapy is needed to help us grow certain areas, the social part with how to interact with other people and how to overcome stumbling blocks and all of this. Emotional dumping is something that is harder for men just because we don't deal with it in the same way that women do. For women, I think it's almost a daily thing, I think. But I'm not sure. I would have to actually talk to other women to kind of put some of the pieces together. But there's more opportunity for women to talk about this stuff than for men. Like the environment's different. Um, I want to say they work less hours than men, but I don't have any statistics to back that up. But the workload and all that, we excel in different areas. All right. So let me check out live chat there. Oh, I was on live chat. Okay. Um, so outside of that, when it comes down to intimacy, there's a couple things that I've noted. Um, as far as the whole adult discussion, because that's the whole general topic here. Intimacy, once it's there, it can help ensure not just safety, but commitments and keeping things together during the hard times. Um, One of the biggest problems is people are jumping into relationships ready to jump out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. The commitment is there, the problems hit, and someone's gone. And this I am hearing on both sides, but what I am understanding is that women can be mistaken. They can mistake unhealthy qualities for healthy qualities because of what it's attached to. Having pride in some of the men out there who are very masculine in appearance and they have their social skills that are like 120%. There is a lot attached to that bravado, that confidence that is unhealthy. And therapists like OG Gamer, Healthy Gamer, they can go into this, breaking this down on like why this is the case, why this happens, why women fall for the bad guy, who then turn dumps them once they get their needs met, quote unquote. So you have that breaking down. And part of the problem there is when things do break down, it tends to leave quite the impact in our life to the point where we end up changing. It's not just baggage, it's not just trauma. It's like we ourselves end up changing over this because relationships are something that are more or less permanent. I'm not talking about friendships. I'm talking about something that goes deeper that lasts for years. The intention of it lasting for years. The intimacy there, when it doesn't even form, like I don't know how many relationships people can go through before, like, relationships starting and then breaking. I don't know how many people, how many times people can go through this before they just say, I'm done, enough. This matters. Relationships, when people, and from what I'm hearing, a lot of men, when they say, I'm done, they're walking away generally. And I mean, like age 30 and above, they generally are sincere about this. There's quite a few guys who I've talked to personally just say they're done with marriage, they're done with dating, all of that. Yes, please share both. I would say share with everyone here. I can't share or else it'll freeze the screen and no one will hear anything here. The more people who are interested who want to hop on here, in particular the people who I invited, the people who are interested in the group discussion, all that, I was trying to get it out to them. I did send them the link as well, but I don't know if they'll get it. I mean, I don't know if they'll hop on and accept it. Intimacy is hard for me to talk about. I do need to throw that out there as a disclaimer because I have my own thoughts on it. I have 2 pets, and that's a whole different environment rather than just, sorry, that's a whole different part of the conversation because that's not personal in person kind of relationship. That is largely a big fat question mark and a blank to me. It's frustrating, but you know what? It's it's probably a blessing in disguise that I don't have much experience there. Um, it does suck that I can only talk about it so far with that. But intimacy is something that I've always been curious about, and it is worth mentioning as far as like the issues and problems that I've seen and how it's been mishandled or how it's been handled properly by other people like my parents, and then how it's been mishandled by other people where the law and the government got involved because of damages, because of kids being involved. Family courts, when they get involved, they seem to be monetized. So they rip apart whoever they can for money. Now, largely it'd be men, but I've heard women being affected as well, who then complain on social media. Uh, I'm not really going to comment on that, but I will say it's happened. This is in real time for the past couple of years, and it's becoming a very serious issue. Adult content, as far as going back to the main topic, like intimacy, I don't know much. I don't know if there's anything beyond intimacy as far as this part to actually throw out there. For me, it's a question mark, but I do mention a couple things there. When kids get involved, that that's not something I can even talk about either, unfortunately. Now I'm doing better with kids, but my interaction with them is very low. So, like again, not much I can personally say about that. It matters. I'm not the right person to talk about it, I guess. Let me put it that way. Manuel, you know other people who have kids, so you probably have some better idea about this than I do. I mean, I was in the army for 10 years too. We don't deal with kids. Well, I did. I didn't deal with kids. I dealt with local nationals and other people in the military. Mary, one of my other friends, actually struggled in that area. She had to bring her kids into base a couple of times because she wasn't able to get a caretaker for a couple of days. Um, Bringing personal stuff to your work, including kids and problems, uh, that changes a lot. uh, it's funny. It's funny going back to some of these old memories. Um, but yeah, that was pretty much it. Did you want to add anything for intimacy there?
Uh, yeah, when it comes to intimacy, it always depends on how you define it. Beings are intimate creatures in general. To engage in conversation, to engage in touch, to engage in many different things takes an intimacy, which means humanity. engaging in a true human connection. We're the image bearers of God, and God has revealed himself through us as we reflect him. What does that mean? And part of that, obviously, reflecting who God is to the world and ruling the world on his behalf, it engages in conversations and covenants in true relationship. And so when it comes to that, every human being is being intimate whenever they engage in doing life and being human. But
You're
how
talking. You're
goes?
briefly going on to identity here, which is important.
Yeah, what your identity is going to determine what you are going to do. A chair, its identity is something to be sat in, so to get to hold someone. To be human is to be an imager of God, to rule the world on His behalf, to be able to show Him to the universe. When a human lives life, he, by his own nature, by existing, is testifying who God is. We know.
When
Go
in
ahead.
the context of a relationship, when someone falls for you, they fall in love with you, quote unquote. That's like literally in you, who you are. That's the whole identity thing does come into play because it's like they're falling in love with who you are or who you are trying to show yourself off to be. That goes down a whole rabbit hole right there. But I'm throwing that out there because what you're saying ties into identity. That's all I was trying to do. But anyway, please continue.
Yeah, even that concept of falling in love. So that's actually not even a Christian concept there either. That's a Greek mythology concept. So Cupid would take his arrow and fire it towards someone, and the love would possess them. This cosmic force would possess them, and they would quote unquote fall or be captured or taken in love by this god towards somebody else. And so the Christian idea believes
Yeah,
that
yeah.
the actual idea of what it means to love is sacrificial devotion, and so that to sacrifice, to set aside something or lose something, and devotion to be committed or covenanted to somebody else. Now that covenant with somebody else can take a variety of different shapes, right? The Bible talks about loving everybody, loving God and loving neighbor, and so we make a covenant with others in light of them being imagers, fellow imagers of God with you. And so now, obviously, I know the conversation we're headed towards sexuality, sure, but it begins here with what it fundamentally means to be human. Love being a choice of sacrificial. Now, emotional
Well,
role, like sure, we have emotions that want to have sex, and if we have those emotions, which is a good emotion because God wants us to fill the earth, reproduction, but it being targeted towards that, how is that covenant to be enacted? And that covenant to be enacted through holy matrimony, a man and a woman committed to one another into the obedience to the dominion mandate of filling the earth with fellow image bearers.
part of the problem with all of this is exactly that. It's I don't really care about following the guidelines of YouTube per se. I always try to be professional, so to speak, in this sort of capacity. So I avoid certain things naturally as it is. Everyone is interested in sex for one reason or another. It's not going to be the same. That's understandable, but pursuing that is difficult. And I'm saying that as far as like, this is how I pursue it, and this is how I will display it. Because then it's just like, oh, that's just porn. No. And then you can go at it from an educational purpose, from a biblical purpose, and whatever else that is existing out there that is somewhere in between those two. But this is something to be noted that when it is pursued, biblically speaking, or even from a therapist point of view, they do so standing upon something that has been around for a very long time, by other people that have put down their own thoughts and studies and on how to deal with this. In the Bible, I want to say a lot of people stand upon what Paul and Peter has said and some of the other apostles in the New Testament, and in some cases they'll go right back to the Song of Solomon here with the whole entire book, and they'll go to specific parts talking about whatever is relevant at this point in time. Other than that, people are just going to go straight into the action. They're going to skip everything else and go straight to the action. People can do that, but they're not there. They're trying to get their needs and wants met, and they're not trying to do anything else. So it's basically get what they want, and then boom, they're done. They're gone. That's not the point of this. This was to like I'm covering parts of that, but I'm not trying to like indulge in people's fantasies. Maybe that's a better way of saying that. Because talking about fantasies, giving information, giving thoughts, a different perspective, quote unquote, this stuff matters because it's not even being talked about. It's just being, oh my word. Let me back up here. Certain things are put behind a paywall. Other things are put behind the Bible, which people have issues with for whatever reason. Other people, it's like, okay, other paywall, Bible, there was something else too. Getting your information, like where you get your information from, does matter. Well, I'm drawing a blank on that, but whatever. I'll move on here. It's
I will add one thing to what you said. Like when people come to quote unquote getting information from different places, like there's always information out there, and it's just in one frame people say it's a barrier. In another frame it's just people being lazy. Like if you genuinely want to learn something, you will devote yourself to learning it. And the
yeah.
Bible is one of the most free resources of all time. Like it's not a barrier. It's only a moral barrier if people want to make it so. But even atheists can pick up a Bible and realize the historical significance of it due to it being an entire library of literature for the history of a very unique people group in the Middle East. And so
we
that's important.
we co- Yeah, agreed, Alan. I agree with that. It again, a live discussion, recorded discussion would be awesome. Maybe I'll do something again with Telegram and just like, here's a group discussion. Let's go pop on here and talk about it, like a casual thing. I agree with Alan there. Um, Here's the thing: we need boundaries because with the way sex is, connections are made, and emotion, especially emotional connections, and they grow and grow. And part of the danger there is they're meant to grow. Stopping them, putting an axe between two people is not something that should be happening. And in a sense, when the connections are made, it's almost unnatural to stop that. So that's another reason why this is important, is because I think for people who are involved with like porn, they realize once this stuff is starting, it's not going to stop. And for each person, once they get hooked onto this, they got them hooked, and it's just a matter of what their interest is to for these people to put stuff out there for them to get addicted to, quote unquote. Porn is one of the largest things in the world, unfortunately. It all started probably back with the temples and stuff back in the day, like you could actually go there and whatever. We don't need that here. We have the internet and all that. So like that's a whole ball field that is not being dealt with well. Now, recently I heard, as far as with the governments being involved, they're trying to crack down on OnlyFans due to sex trafficking. I believe there's more in depth into that, but they're trying to like the government is trying to deal with that website as a whole. I don't know of any other websites that are currently being uh, yeah, websites and other areas where there's a high sex traffic. I'm not aware, but I know that they're being looked into by the government's trying to shut them down, and maybe the IRS is going to get involved because of what I heard. Excuse me. What I heard is that the IRS was getting involved due to taxes, uh, uh, whatever, like people avoiding paying taxes and stuff. That they tied that to what I read, but I don't know how accurate it is. I think it's worth mentioning though. Um, Outside of intimacy though, outside of the Song of Solomon's, romance is not something I can touch, but I have to mention that it's not handled properly. The church, in fact, I would say when it comes down to the church, they're one of the biggest. This is one of the biggest areas that they get right. In one of the few areas that they get right. If they did nothing but talk about how to improve relationships with God and other people, I would say the church as a whole would grow because they're catering towards everyone, singles and married couples. I mean, please tell me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, when it comes to the quote unquote who the church is catering to, like it's I definitely hear what you're saying, and we want to seek all image bearers of Christ, every single human being. But the problem is we have a message, and that message is going to either people are going to embrace it or people are going to reject it. God has a people that He's going to save, and it's going to eventually, at one day, be the recreation of all things, the salvation of all things, the whole world being saved at some point from sin, shame, and guilt. But when it
Yep.
comes to rescuing those people, like the message that the church has for the universe is one of forgiveness of sins. And so to bridge the gap of that intimacy that we lost with God, that's what it's about. And once we bridge that gap of having that intimacy back with God again, of that covenant relationship, then we can start building on our own relationships. We experience forgiveness, we experience redemption, and we share that with others. And we bridge those gaps and build brand new covenant relationships.
I would.
A variety of different forms.
I. I recalled an interesting point here when you mentioned some of this. I believe we're going to be having relationships with other like angels, so to speak. Going back to Nephilim that other people have been talking about, which have been making the rounds on YouTube here, by the way. The Nephilim were supposedly created between a relationship, intimacy with angels, fallen angels, and then humans, specifically women. Because don't ask me how, I don't know anything about it, but I have to say, I think relationships like that would continue in the future. New heaven, new earth, that sort of thing. But what capacity may actually being explored in the here and now. When I say that, I mean here and now over the who knows how long humans have been around for. So hundreds, thousands, millions of years. I think a lot of this stuff is actually developing to a certain point before whatever happens triggers the final phase, because we're going through different phases here on Earth. Not to get too sidetracked. I was just simply bringing up, like, I think relationships among other humans is important, but I think there's going to be other relationships, and I just brought in angels and humans as well, because there's God in us, but I think it's more than just simply God in us and just our relationships and friendships that we have with other humans.
But
Um,
angle is correct, but if you're talking about a sexual union, that is also something different.
Not trying to go there because I can't really talk about something I don't know and understand. I can just say it exists and then that's it. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if even angels suffer temptation. Oh, that's a really hot woman. God help.
I mean,
I mean, the quality of woman is probably a little different from Eve's quality back in the day.
well, I think
Come on, God created Eve. How would he not create anything that was not like perfect?
the biblical narrative, we do see that angels themselves have wills, they have desires, and when it came to engaging in that sexual union with human women,
Oh
point
my word.
because of the same kind of desire that we have
Mm.
that they had, that could be argued, but in the overall biblical narrative, it was directly an antagonistic desire to fight against the promised seed that would crush Satan's head in Genesis chapter 3:15. And I think that's important because the whole idea was to corrupt the bloodline of human beings with perversion of the Nephilim, and
Yep.
spirits themselves don't really have relationships with corporeal beings. That's why you have to understand them becoming corporeal in some capacity. And when Nephilim themselves being monsters that needed killing, that Joshua killed, Moses killed, and ultimately we see their spirits in the New Testament as demons. Like we have that understanding, but they're possessing people at that point.
I have to go and I have to interject here. Is I had a funny thought here about what if God made Eve with a unibrow? That's terrible. I know. When I go to heaven, if I see Eve, I'll ask her, "Did you have a unibrow?" No. Let's not go there. It's stupid, but it's just a funny little joke, I guess.
the creation.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's also important too, like that concept of like when people say go to heaven, we forget there is recreation and a resurrection. And so it's like we got to be thinking about that too, like the physicalness of the world. That is good. Like God making things physical, the physical realm is good. And the idea is not for God to destroy it, it's for God to redeem it. That's in fact tonight we just had a Bible study in Genesis chapter 9 about
Yeah, because you had one prior. Yeah,
yeah,
you had one prior to all this.
and,
It is It is just past 10 o'clock, by the way.
oh,
I'm throwing that out there here. We've been talking for about 75 minutes now.
have we covered most of the topics?
No, we covered the more important topics, in my opinion. It's not how many; it's quality. Quality over quantity. And on
Yeah.
top of that, the biblical stuff does matter, and I feel it should be covered first before talking about anything else. I've covered love dolls about a year and a half to 2 years ago. Um, that's coming up next because I know that's important, and there's a lot of people that have questions about this sort of thing. And it's not like I want to contradict and tell others like, "Oh yeah, these other Christians are wrong about this." But what I've seen actually does matter. But anyway, I wasn't trying to cut you off. You were trying to say something else.
Uh, yeah, it was. I'm trying to exactly remember what it was. I remember it was relating it back to Genesis 9 about the covenant with Noah and there being a
Yeah.
resurrection. The idea that God destroyed the world with a flood, but then when He redeemed the world, the promise of a rainbow, never to destroy the world again. He made a covenant with all created things through Noah. Noah was
It's
the covenant head of the universe, and He
it's to be noted that when God speaks, covenants and promises, anything that is binding, seems to be there in that particular capacity. And this is to be noted because the Creator wants what He says to be binding to a degree, to the point where if He has to say, "I will reverse, I will change it," in the case where Abraham, I think, argued to preserve Sodom and Gomorrah about finding X amounts of righteous people in there. Would you save this place? It This is important because when God changes His mind, it's almost like He wants someone to step up to be intercessor, to be the watchman in the tower, according to that one phrase in Isaiah, the one verse in Isaiah that talks about like it is your job to stand up for the people. I will hold you accountable if you fail. Like I'm trying to make 2 points here that I think when God speaks, He's trying to always have it be binding in some way, shape, or form because like this matters. When I speak, there's consequences.
yeah,
But the other part is I want people to stand up against me to like as intercessors, that kind of against, like in between me and the object who I'm speaking for or towards. He's done quite a bit against of I don't want to say prophecies, but like he spoke out against quite a few nations too in the Old Testament. Um, I'm not aware of any other times that he spoke out against others, with the exception of in Revelation, I think. But that was from a different viewpoint. That was not directly from God. God was speaking through others, if I recall correctly. Um, was there anything else to add there? I'm listing a whole list of topics here. Like there's things to actually go off of. We hit off of Song of Solomon, the biblical side, dating relationships. Some of these are unfortunately question marks. Dating relationships, touch starvation, healthy touching, romance, intimacy. We only have a couple of things left to touch on. The artistic nudity and porn I touched on, but frankly, to be clear, the defining factor between artistic nudity and porn is that it's not meant to be monetized and it's not meant to provoke. It's not erotic. It's not meant to cause stimulations of any kind, with the exception of, ooh, this inspires me to, this pose. It's about the pose and not about the body. Artistic nudity is interesting because of like the schooling that goes into the type of brush, the type of color, the type of style. It's all about style and the poses. And you do need to have good models to actually recreate certain things. But that goes different through the different areas, the different times where there was like body painting and stuff. Actually, there's a whole issue with Twitch. I don't know if it's still ongoing or not. Hold on. Questions. Alan, if you have any other questions, put them up there, okay? Put them up there if you have any other questions, because this is for anyone. If anyone has questions or whatever comments, throw them out there. This is supposed to be a group thing. This is the first of its kind too. So anything that comes after this, I'll probably put a part 2 and a part 3. But this is important, but this is also one-on-one. Like there's only one guest at a time. So in that sense, if we're going to do different parts of the same topic with different people involved, I would probably put the other person's name down below too, just like a part 2 with part 1 would be with Manuel, I guess. So Alan, you have any other questions or whatever? Throw them down there in PM or on here, okay? Yes, God spoke out against quite a few nations. Babylon was just one of them. I want to say Babylon has quite a few people, including Daniel, that were there around where God was directly involved in. But as far as the time periods, I don't remember the time period. I lost my train of thought here. Give me a second. Sometimes I hate when that happens. Interruptions pop up. It throws it what I was saying right out the window. Like my thought process is gone. Okay, 1 second. Oh, jeez. Oh yeah. So talking about poses, the models and stuff like that. So I am a photographer. I take beautiful shots, beautiful pictures of landscape, mainly landscape artists, like landscape photography. Excuse me. They have wedding photography. They have photography for babies. They have photography for different areas as well. But I do landscape, and I excel at that. So poses, the lighting, that matters. They talk about lighting in different ways. So the whole entire point that I'm getting at here is how it's done is incredibly different than actually porn, which is all about action. It's all about provoking sensations, feelings, and that grows they probably grow different parts of the brain, but like one is literally meant to be a drug to get addicted, and the other one is meant to expand upon in a different way that is non-addictive, more or less non-addictive, more or less. I mean, you get to the age of adults, you're start going to be having access to different areas that would, that are not normal they're not supposed to be available to kids and stuff like that. The houses, prostitutes, where the houses where prostitutes are at is one of them. That's a big one, but I don't know if there's anything else out there. Mostly because they didn't have other forms of media to present nudity anyway. One of the things that I recently came upon that was very troublesome to me, that took me some time to think about, was one of the things that are these people were looking for at this particular site, or maybe it's or different sites with archaeology, were these houses where these prostitutes were at, by specifically looking for bodies of babies nearby. They went into detail talking about this, and it hits me hard because you don't hear this. I've never heard this anywhere else about people excavating areas specifically looking for bodies of babies to see if they can prove such and such existed from specific people, and probably not specific people, but specific areas, and just how just what that particular part of the culture was like with prostitutes. It's an eye opener for sure because they don't talk about that anywhere else. But this was on something to do with history and archaeology, but I can't remember exactly what the title of the video was. This was here on YouTube. This was about 3 months ago. But it had something to do with history. I just can't remember what. I've never forgotten that one part though. It just kind of alarmed me. Like looking for bodies is always something that raises an eyebrow, plain and simple. Moving on from that unfun part, my interaction with the adult community has been limited and currently is put on hold because it's not the healthiest place to be at. God is not really there, but when he is, he's around the people involved. And I want to say the one part I will repeat because I told some others. When it comes down to pain, anything pain involved, God isn't there for sadism. He doesn't enjoy inflicting pain on other people, which is definitely of interest. The most tame one that I'm aware of would be like waxing with candles, and it's sensational. It's supposed to feel good, and generally does feel good. But wax play and all that, you're talking about an interesting kind of pain there. Pain that God is involved in would be around building character, eliminating flaws, eliminating weaknesses, helping improve people on mostly on the inside level, but the gym is involved. So on the outside as well, improving your body, improving your mind, that kind of tearing down slash building up is the only kind of pain that God seems to be around. The only class that I was around that I was able to go to was an advanced knife play and advanced needle play. And I have to say, sitting in the back there, eating some of the snacks, wide eyed, listening to this guy scream because his the person he was in a relationship was putting a needle through his uh, fingers, not through the bone and all that. I That's a part of adult content because of fetishes and kinks and stuff like that. God isn't there because where pain's at, we tend to get stuck in, I want to say, like trauma, like something where trauma and demonic spiritual forces can impact us. We are at a place where like it's almost like a doorway. Something can go through that, or we can get stuck somewhere that we're not supposed to be at. Enjoying When you find something that you enjoy, you also tend to like linger there and stay around there for a long time. I enjoy Star Wars, for example. I lingered there up until Kathleen Kennedy and whatever that guy's name was ruined that second movie right after The Force Awakens. I'm blanking on his name. I don't like him. I don't like how any part of that went, with the exception of Kylo Ren. Like the only saving grace of that movie was Kylo Ren. I'm not blaming the actors. I'm not blaming the actresses. I'm just saying the people in charge, they burned that whole entire. They basically effectively neutered Star Wars. Dave Filoni ended up helping recover some parts of that with like some of the other shows. Anyway, I'm throwing that out there because where we get stuck at does kind of matter. These gateways lead into somewhere else. The adult community is almost a gateway of sorts. Um, they can lead to so much else that is needed, wanted, and addictive, unfortunately. So my start where I started off was online. In my When I was deployed, that was like when I first had freedom with the internet and all that. It was it was amazing. Everything was different back then. It was a lot more freeing. The Napster time, 2008 with Napster and all that, freedom was in the air. Anonymity, you were who you wanted to be. You didn't have to worry about spammers. You didn't have to worry about information being leaked. You It was a lot more free. It was a free time, so to speak. And it was reflected in the adult community, and people loved meeting other people. People really wanted to make friends and connections. Everything was wonderful and casual at that point in time. It is very different than what it is now, where there's a lot of disclaimers and people worried and scared about abuse. Um, the age group, okay, so it is 2024 on the eve of 2025. We're talking about 15, 20 years ago. Different crowd. I'm 38. I would have been around 18. 18, 20. You know, the age population involved has actually changed significantly because the people that were around are no longer around. They're retired from the scene, and some places have been shut down around here in North Carolina. I looked into that. I was actually surprised. Some places have shut down in the past 2 to 3 years ago. This is something that bothered me because I was interested and I would like to participate and be a part of this, but they're gone. So some of these places here where these events and avenues taking place at, gone. Sometimes for better. I want to say in Virginia, in Charlottesville, there was a place there for a while, but when I arrived on the scene, one of the clubs was actually shut down for like a year. Probably for the best because my time there in Charlottesville, Virginia was 2011 to 2017, like February or January or whatever. That's when I ended up moving. So we're talking about like good around 6 years. And this one place had shut down like right before I got there. So yeah, getting involved in stuff. Some people have different interests. Oh yeah. What was that one preacher? This one preacher who oh my word. He was when he died, his little his scandal was exposed. Do you remember his name?
Rabbi Zacharias.
Thank you, Rabbi Zacharias. God was around that man. I heard God speak through him. I actually loved some of what he was talking about, but when it came to light what he was doing, everything that he did was thrown out the window. It's not cool, but things could have handled better. And I'm a firm advocate when it comes down to this. If he would have actually been a part of the adult community with particular BDSM, none of this stuff would have happened. He could have been able to deal with all of that and not have it cause issues with everyone else. In fact, I would argue that everything that he put out there would still be fine. It would just been a known. Oh yeah, he was a guy who was in the BDSM community or whatever. But that never happened, and everything as a result, pretty much all his life's work thrown out the window. Like stores stopped selling his products, his books, his speeches, everything that he talked about. I don't know how much you know about Rabbi, but take a look and see where you can get his stuff at.
Yeah, his stuff is still available, but I'm hearing everything you're saying, but when it comes to like sexual integrity, when you read the Apostle Paul, one of the most foundational things he said in his pastoral epistles, First, Second Timothy, and Titus, and what he called different churches accountable to: church at Ephesus, church at Corinth, church at Crete through Titus. When you have one of the foundational markers that set Christianity apart from other pagan religions of the Roman Empire, things like that, was sexual integrity. It was something everybody talks about, sexual revolution of the 1960s. Well, that's actually one of the first sexual revolutions people can think about is actually Christianity, in a culture that everything was sexual promiscuity, embracing our desires, surrendering to the gods, and worshiping them according to how we can satisfy our flesh or mutilate our flesh. Christianity comes in and says, no, flesh is good, created by God for purposes, and to engage in sexual activity has a telos, has an end game, and that end game is the procreation of the species, bond between man and a woman. And so when it came to the idea of sexuality and sexual integrity, that was a high calling for people that are going to be part of a brand new covenant family.
I would actually disagree, and I'd have to say a legacy, family legacy, is where that actually ends at, because history is something that's always been important, and I don't know where God stands on history per se, but I know it's important to enough to say Jesus came from. This is Jesus' line of family, and two women who are prostitutes are a part of that. Like, history does matter. Legacy matters.
And is your legacy going to be one of sexual promiscuity or sexual integrity?
Okay, God, I know he joked about this yesterday, but I'm going to go back to this again. When it comes down to microscopes, it seems that I can't remember the context of the joke, but it's hilarious. I'm going to say it anyway. Uh, when it comes down to microscopes, okay, I can't remember it, but I remember the parts of it. Oh, I said I think God prefers strippers and microphones to microscopes, but I can't remember anything beyond that. It was so funny though. It was so dumb. I was like, look back at Jesus' line there. There's two prostitutes who are his great grandmother or so and so. Like this matters, and even though it was a humorous point yesterday, it it holds relevance because it's like who we were gives an opportunity as long as we're willing, it gives God an opportunity to be involved in our lives no matter how far down the drain things have gone. We may feel like things are at the end, but God, when he steps in and actually changes it around, people can have incredible life stories, you know. There's a one gentleman who talked, but you weren't there, sadly. He had changed his life around and he had hit rock bottom. This was at the church that you met me at, the one that I was going through the Tuesday night Bible studies. You remember? But yeah, one of the people there you didn't meet, sadly, who did get married last month, I think, last month or the month prior. I don't know if he's still around, but he hit rock bottom and God ended up reaching out and rescuing him, and he's in a much better place now. He's a manager even. So he's married, making a lot of money, and probably is looking at purchasing his own home. Like getting your own home is hard, very, very hard. So God can be faithful if we are faithful. If we're not faithful, he can't really be faithful because it's like, how are you trying to be faithful to someone who's not even in the same picture?
I, but I see what you're saying, but I think something that just to add on to what you already just said, like there is a standard. And so God using broken people is not an excuse to behave brokenly. Like when God used broken people, the whole idea is he's a redeemer. For God to
yeah,
be a
to
redeemer,
redeem.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, like there is a standard, and I think when it comes to our conversation we've been having, sexual integrity, monogamy, reproduction, family, those are the standard. Everything else is a derivative of that standard, and
Well,
yeah,
marriage is a standard, but it's a standard that is held up to show quite a few things, including the relationship between God and others, the people, the church. It's good for a number of reasons to have a standard to kind of follow. That being said, a brief note when it comes down to alternative relationships, the standards there need to be brought in by the people who are trying to get the relationship to start with, which is tricky because it's like if you're not standing upon something, you're just going to be bushwhacking it from who knows where. Like you're going to be making your own trail, so to speak. That if the alternative relationship is based upon parts of marriage with communication, trust, integrity with what you're saying, you could possibly make it work. It's tricky though because I haven't been able to talk to anyone who's been in these different relationships yet. Not with the context of like having an actual good conversation. I was friends with this one Wiccan who later told me that she was a witch, but she didn't go much into a relationship with her husband. But she was able to talk about it. It was good. I want to say February of last year, I did that video that showcased it with the conversation on the witch. I asked her the best questions that I could because I want to know if witchcraft had changed in her from her eyes, if it had changed now compared to that in the Bible. Um, so the video itself was good, but we're not on speaking terms, sadly. She probably could have talked more about her relationship if we were still friends. We were friends for like 3 years, but she threw that out the window, sadly, and it just really ended on a very bitter, sour note. So it's not sad. It's sad that the whole thing just ended because we could have had some really good conversations. That being said, I don't think alternative relationships offer much, but what it can offer is unknown. I can't really go beyond speculation, unfortunately. I was interested in that for a long time myself, but frankly, this would lead to BDSM, and I would talk more about the relationship side there later in a separate video because it's interesting. I will say this: this the relationships that I found there could be deeper than marriage because it's meant to be lifelong. It's meant to be like you love each other, you're going to stick with each other no matter what. So it's there's similarities there between that and marriage, but it's its own little bubble that I would talk about later. Some of the stuff has made me realize I should probably take it over to Rumble because censorship is different over there. It's not as it is over here in YouTube, sadly. And I don't like that. I don't appreciate that I can't be open, I can't be transparent due to policies or whatever. And people are afraid of like algorithms and stuff like that. Me, I'm just like, I get that. I don't like it, but I'll do what I can and see what other options are available to pursue. One of them being paying money into promotions. That is specifically not for anything else other than to get back into the algorithm, so to speak. Why one would advertise matters because some people's messages, their whole personality changes because of how they go about doing this. This is tricky because people want to reach others, but sometimes their messages change, they get obsessed over views. It's not about the content, it's not about the quality, it's about how many people watch this. And that is a slippery slope right there because it's like, what are you sacrificing to get more views? What are you sacrificing for publicity? Me, it's not really. In some ways, I have a really cool story. I have a really cool testimony, which I only share half here on the site. I try to make that clear, but it's hard for me to talk about the other half, which you already know because of Facebook and personal profile, all that stuff. There's a lot tied there. I felt like it's better just like leave it alone, start up a second channel, and see where it goes from there. This is kept to be more serious. You've seen the intro for some of my videos, right?
Yeah, a few of them.
It's meant to be mysterious. It's meant to be watch your step. Be careful. There's things out there lurking around that is not always going to be friendly. When I say that, because things in the night are different than things in the day. And frankly, I would probably go on a limb here and say I'm pretty sure a lot of what is paranormal is actually spiritual. They label it paranormal because they don't really want to acknowledge that it is spiritual. That's me. That's my opinion on this. Anyway, that's enough of a side trail. It's important. I felt it was important to throw out there. The adult community is more of a question mark than I would like it to be. There's a lot of good stuff there. Stuff with BDSM, which leads into a whole different thing that I'll have to write down, take notes, and put stuff up here. But it's good. It's interesting, even if it's not important. But it should get its own little topic. The love dolls and sex toys. There's not much to say there, but I will note that when I looked into this with a couple of friends here on Facebook and Telegram, anything to do with butt plugs and all that stuff is for play. Prostate massagers, they're for dealing with the part, whatever it's called. There's a part that always expands in a man and it never stops growing. The prostate, it actually puts pressure on the prostate to the point where you have problems that it needs to be dealt with. So prostate massager is specifically designed not for play, not for entertainment, but to actually help deal with whatever that thing is in the prostate. And the third thing was, give me a second. So you have two things. One's for entertainment and one's for play, and the other one is for health-related reasons. Dildo, there we go. That was the other one. Dildo's straight for play. Butt plugs, they have a lot of things attached to them, and the prostate massager is for, again, for the prostate. For women, they're going to have like hundreds of different types of toys. It seems that these toys are made more for women than it is for men, but I want to say the further someone's interest in kinks and fetishes grow, the more we change, the more we struggle with what is put into our lives. I question, and I've never really gotten much answer back, but I think it's not healthy to grow in this area because of what we end up bringing into our lives and emotionally attached to. Two main points of that. But I would say knowing who you are also means knowing the parts that of you that you are uncomfortable with and parts that you may struggle with. So, in a sense, you can explore these areas. I think you probably should if you want to know who you are, what you're capable of, for better and for worse. In that sense, it's like, who are you really? Who is God getting to know? All of you or just one part of you? In that sense, individuality matters. God wants to have a relationship with each and every person, not parts of every person, if that makes sense.
I will speak to part of that. There was a lot there, but I'll speak to the last thing you said. The foundational idea of like, what does it mean to God get to know you, you get to know God? Um, the the idea behind the quote unquote real you, the idea, what does it mean to be human? What's your identity? Should you change for somebody else? When it
Yeah,
comes to Christianity itself, it's all about dying to yourself and conforming to something new. Um,
that does
when it
happen. Progress happens. Yes.
when it comes to you being who you really are, I wonder what that means because part of me can go positive and say, okay, so it's a matter of me becoming the new human, conforming to the image of Christ, me being who God has predestined me to become. But if I take the negative aspect of that, the quote unquote real you, well, you're a sinner. You were born in the bloodline of Adam, and you have fallen, corrupted, perverted, evil desires that need to be redeemed. And the real you is someone you don't want any part of, and you want to kill that person, and
I
so you can become a brand new person.
I want to say with the way like tumors and stuff naturally grow up, issues with the body, there's stuff that's attached to us that grows with us that we have like no control over. It grows and be's a part of us. In that sense, we definitely do need to renew our mind. We need to renew ourselves and do what we can with the relationship as Christians to improve upon the relationship with God that we have. So yes, there is supposed to be progress there, supposed to be renewal. There's supposed to be a lot of good things there that are the result of like effort, work, change, self-improvement, sanctification. Holiness is a big part here. How it plays a part of everything is something I still question. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, but I recognize there's a lot of value here that should be pursued. But you get there. It's a process. You get there. This isn't something you actually arrive at. It's not something that you just simply start at and you start off perfectly. We all start off as, I don't want to say failures, but we all start off at the low end, so to speak. Like we start off pretty badly in the beginning. Let me put it that way. So what you're saying is true, um, but I don't think we start there. I think the idea is to arrive there.
I guess
Who
when you
knows? Who
someone's
knows?
you can't start as a failure if you haven't began something, right? I've heard that before too. Like
Yeah.
you can't start off at a point where you failed something because you haven't failed anything yet. So that's important. But I think it's also important to know that we are born in sin, and we being from the bloodline of Adam, both by body but also by soul. We sinned with Adam in his first sin. He is our covenant head. We sinned with him, and therefore we
All
are
right.
guilty by that. And so that is why the idea of salvation is that God is changing us from within the inside. We can't of our own selves correct the mistakes. We can't make ourselves better of our own accord. Making ourselves better is actually submitting to God's changing of
It's
us, and God's
this
spirit is what's changing us from the inside out.
if we are born spiritually dead, I have to question some of what you're saying here, because that is throwing a little bit of shade onto this. You're born in a world, in a position that you have no control over. This is not something that we have control over. So some of this is like what would tie in the conversation with what you were saying, informing me, that was an eye opener as well. It's like, if the world is already condemned and we are born into this world already condemned because of the world, there's only so much that we can be accused of. But if that is still enough for to say like we're all damned, period, that's the state that we start off in. That would change. That
That is why evangelism is that important. Like, that's this thing
yeah,
about like
yeah.
going out and sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. The reason we do that is because without that message, people are damned. And if we truly believe that people are going to hell if without the message of Christ, then that will compel the church to man up, if you will, and go and call people away from the demons into the kingdom of light. Because when we think about us being born in sin, shapen in iniquity, the fact that we are born in a state of sin and misery, according to Westminster Confession of Faith, it's important to understand that, oh, I'm accountable because I know the truth. I'm accountable because God has given me the truth. The Apostle Paul talks to the Jews about the advantage of being a Jew. Well, the advantage is the fact that they have the oracles of Yahweh. They actually had God talking to their ancestors, and they have the Tanakh, the
They
Hebrew
have
Bible.
history.
And so what makes them accountable is to go and give it to the Gentiles, give it to them. Paul says, I'm a prisoner in chains, and I'm bound to go get the good news out to the Gentiles. And that calls all of us Christians to go get that news out. Because if someone's in the jungles of India or wherever they want to be, and they never heard the gospel, they never had a chance to hear it, when they die, they are damned. And that's why we need to get the gospel to them. Because when the gospel began, it began with Jesus Christ and 12 men. And it's since then, it's been saving the world. And that's where we got to keep. We're not
No,
done yet. We've
no.
gone along. Yeah.
God would be saving individuals in the world. The world itself, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure with the way the phrasing is, when Satan had quote unquote control over the world itself, I'm pretty sure there was like an agreement or accord of something there for God to limit his interactions as well. I That's an impression that was made on me, but there's nothing there to back it up. So that's why I say reaching out to individuals rather than reaching out to the world itself.
Well,
Just throwing that out there.
that's how you do it. Like when someone says save the world, you save the world one soul at a time.
They,
That's how the world is saved. Like we
there's
go out.
studies, Manuel. There's studies showing the differences between individuals, individuals uh, mentorship one-on-one versus group studies, and I'm talking about like reaching out through a group versus reaching out to one-on-one. And it seems in the long run, one versus one is a lot more effective. It goes longer, goes farther, it lasts compared to like the whole group thing. So I'm agreeing with you. I'm just throwing that out there as an interesting
Yeah.
fact that I came across years ago, with
Yeah.
one-on-one being more important than group stuff.
That's discipleship. Yes.
Discipleship is a little different than mentorship, because that almost takes like a group approach rather than a one-on-one approach. Mentorship is just the singular form of that. I think I could be off. I think that's the beauty of it. It's cool. It's cool. This stuff is cool. I know I could be off. I know I'm a little off in some areas, but I'm not going to let that like stop me or be afraid and just not ever look into the stuff. I frankly get annoyed when I get shut down. Like when people say this is personal to me and I don't want to deal with it. So no, bye, not interested. Now that I think about it, I completely forgot. 1 second. I'm going to share this real quick. I completely forgot. Hang on. I'm probably going to freeze up for a second. I wish I would have thought of this like 2 hours ago, man. Holy jeez, I feel stupid. But anyway, I shared it to my Telegram group. I like, ugh. Why didn't I think about this 2 hours ago? I don't know. My Telegram group is full of non-Christians as well as only a handful of Christians, and it bothers me because Christians who've joined there left. They want their safety bubble. They don't want the conflict. They don't want the discussions. They don't want the disagreement. Maybe they want the discussions. They just don't want the disagreements. And I'm just like, yeah, I won't force you to stay. I'll ask you and I'll encourage you. I'll do what I can. But like, I'm like the only Christian in the channel minus someone else who we're friends with. I'm friends with him. And it's just like, it's heartbreaking. The most important person in that group is she's got severe issues, um, but she's one of the most interesting persons out there. Her view on sex is very casual, but she has her own story. She refuses phone calls. She doesn't like having her voice heard. Um, she was I want to say she was the subject of like porn of some kind where she was actually on video and stuff like that. So like there's a fear there, a phobia or whatever. I say that respectfully because I don't know much, and I kind of want it to be that way, so I don't actually talk about personal issues that she doesn't want known. Let me put it that way. But she's not a Christian. But that conversation I recorded on evolution over a month ago was more of her like she loves that. She believes evolution happened. I think evolution can fall within creation now because of her. She tied biology. She tied a lot to it, and it really surprised me. So that being said, she's the biggest supporter, and we've had some really good conversations because of what she pulled up. Like she pulled up information on Satan, where Satan means adversary. But yeah, go ahead. You were going. Oh no, this is just echoes on your end. Okay, got it. Um, Satan is just a general word for adversary, whereas Lucifer and some other things are just speculations on what his actual name was. When she pulled up some information that I wanted to talk about at some point because it's pretty interesting. Other channels on YouTube have actually covered some of that. Like Satan is not really his name; it's just a title. It's we're getting off topic here, I know, but I'm talking about my group on Telegram. There, it's meant to be for Christians, even though very few Christians are actually there. It's depressing, but I can't force people to participate. All I can try to do is keep the trolls out and keep it safe as best as I'm able to, I guess. Um, that being said, I wish I would have shared that 2 hours ago. Uh, okay, so after talking about all of this, I think toys and all of that was literally the last part. I put up a couple videos here. I'm gonna pull them up. Sorry, a couple links here, some to YouTube and some to like Facebook. The YouTube one I talked about literally first, which was point zero, healthy touching plus Christian dating. I think you did kind of miss that, Emmanuel, but I'll put the link there. It's in the group too. You can check that out. It's the first one. It is something I highly recommend, despite the fact that I have personal issues with that guy talking about this stuff, but he seems to be a Christian. His content is something I can verify, even though it's aggravating the crap out of me. I do not like it. I probably never will like it, but healthy touching is important. It's not happening. Babies have died from the lack of touching, but they don't ever talk about that. They would rather talk about politics and Trump versus Kamala. Shoot, all the babies that have died from abortion. That's entirely different. They have like 4 trillion for yeah. It's like 4 trillion babies have died in abortion alone. But outside of that, everything else would be to touch starvation of some kind. Very little would be of actual starvation, physical starvation. Ugh. Anyway, touch starvation is real. It's important. But how you do that matters. Dude, you gay? No. I'm trying to give you a back pat. Oh man. Okay, so first thing here. I'm gonna shift this over a little bit. They don't want you to know. This was from Ask Rabbi Manis Friedman your questions in private. Yep. And he was talking about marriage and intimacy. Marriage and intimacy, and frankly, from an elder's perspective, doesn't matter where that elder stands at in the Jewish community, Christian community, maybe even the Mormon community. I don't actively listen to any of them, but I will have to throw out there because they mean well when they talk about this stuff. And the other community would be like the Native Americans. They tend to be very spiritual with a different point of ancestors and history, which I think is needed from that point as well. I was adopted. I don't know what my history is, so I can't really go there. But I suspect there's part Native American there because I do trust my birth mom with what she has said. But I cannot remember for the life of me what tribe that she said we were part of. Part Irish and part Native American, according to her. So, second one. Come on. Close. Second one. For Facebook here. It is 10:48, an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. I tagged in Aqua, the totally useful water goddess from Konosuba anime, because the idea about dreams being very visual, where so many people wake up with whatever, very emotional, but it could be from crying, from being happy, to waking up with erotic dreams. Because I've had some things where it's just like, this was out of the blue, this was unexpected. I don't ask to have sexual dreams, but neither do anyone else. Most of the time, it happens and it happens. It could be sensual in a very sexual way, or it could be sensual in like that one dream that I will never forget that looks like Meat Hook Massacre from Magic the Gathering. Basically, it looks like a phone booth, strings, lines coming out with body parts hanging on them. Completely out of the blue, but it was an interesting, crazy dream in a desolate background that just it was a kill booth is all it was. But there was a salesman, and I don't know if the salesman behind it in this broken down area was actually tied to it or not. I don't know, but he was freaking out over something. Like, you got dreams that are just wow. Like, Manuel, how many dreams do you remember that you question?
There's always dreams that you question. It's always
I'm
dreams
asking how many do you remember? I broke
remember.
down like 20 different dreams.
I remember a decent amount. Um, I don't know if the dream conversation is going to lead to something, but I think it's important to know that, like, when it comes to dreaming, what's happening there, you're asleep. You're seeking to compile a bunch of information in your head, and I know there's different theories on dreams. Like, one is you have all these different thoughts, and so your brain seeking to bring order out of chaos. It puts everything into a narrative. Another
You don't have any
idea.
personal dreams you want to share though, right?
Um, I mean, I've had a lot of falling dreams. Fell off buildings, and then when I hit the ground, I wake up. I had a dream I went to hell once. I was in my room upstairs living in snow camp, and I had turned my heater on way too hot, and woke up sweating, and I realized why once I woke up. It was quite scary.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
I
I
was
meant like positive dreams. The negative stuff, understandable. Oh man.
Deposit is actually harder to remember. It's funny. That's
Okay.
actually hard to remember.
I write this stuff down because I've had amazing dreams. The most central, awesome, amazing dream I've ever had, I will go back to time and time again. I will retell it here. This baby was a monument, 5 miles long. Can you see the end of a 5 mile marker monument of anything? I mean, go to Washington D.C. and you'll see some of these. They'll last a couple 100 feet. But this baby was 5 miles long, and it was pure white. It was a structure that looked like a bridge, where it would it wasn't like a triangle. It was like a triangle with a top segment. It was like that, but it was more like an arch segment. And it was the steel beams in between. It was like a bridge essentially. So the arches themselves were around 300 meters thick, wide enough. I'm sorry, that's the inner poles. Inner poles are around 300 meters wide, give or take. It was massive, but the poles themselves were probably easily 10 to 20 feet wide. Now there was at least three different layers, three different levels, and you could take elevators up in the middle of these poles to get to different sections. And I don't know, remember, I never saw what the top section was like, but the bottom one, it was natural. It had some different sites that you could see different vegetation on display. Like here was such and such at this point in time. This is the history, and they would show off some natural areas that had some seats. It wasn't covered, so there was water. I don't know if it had just rained, but there was water coming down. It was a very beautiful sight, and now that I think about it, I think the second section was only for viewing, but I don't know. I don't really remember what the second and the top section was, just the bottom section, which was more of like a museum type of thing. But it was amazing. It was incredible. All around it was nothing but forest and trees. I have never seen anything like that, with the exception of a beautiful Arctic, the stream with a beautiful Arctic with ice in the background, ice caves, an ice wall. I think there's a town or something at the top of one of them. I don't remember, but I remember seeing the sky, a huge air puzzle with with it was air puzzle of some kind, but we were in tanks. We were in tanks going across between a canyon of some kind on the ground. And I remember it being so vivid. The sky was clear. It was crystal cold. The kind of cold that you're prepared for, not that you're shivering because you don't have enough clothes on. But we were dressed up in a military uniform in tanks. It was just awesome. I don't remember anything else other than that one moment. I really don't. But being outside, it's crazy. Now, I will tie this over to the Northern Lights that people have ended up loving, the sights, the feel, all of that stuff. This is going kind of out bounds of the whole adult community thing, but like dreams play a big part of it because of like the sexual stuff that pops up there where people get very worried about. But dreams itself is like, dude, this is awesome. This is amazing stuff. And there's people have talked about the significance. You even mentioned it as well. Like there's significance attached to dreams as far as what the representations could be, what people know this stuff to actually be. I'm not an expert, but I talked about this stuff again and previously about with dreams and all that. Like it's amazing. It's amazing. It has a place in here. It can influence people in very interesting ways as well. Normally, they're afraid and they'll never touch it ever again. But it could play a big part. I've had dreams that I don't know if any of them have personally affected me to the point where I changed my entire viewpoint, but I can definitely tell you, like the sexual ones, I shake my head. I think a long time about it because it's one thing to pursue an interest. It's another thing to become a sexual deviant where it's like you become a worse person. Let me put it that way. Yeah. You may have to confront these parts of you where it's like, all right, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm afraid of, like who I'll become. But if you let yourself, if your fear stops you, you're going to have to recognize that and deal with it in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter how you deal with it per se, but overall, you have to acknowledge that you are dealing with it, you will deal with it, or you are stuck. That kind of goes a couple different ways, but generally you kind of need help to get through that part of life for sure. Getting through it yourself is just going to take years. But frankly, that's where therapy comes into play. Why deal with something in the course of 15 years when you can deal with something in therapy that will take maybe a year at the very most, 2 years at the very most? Why? You want to go through therapy, counseling, biblical counseling, therapy, whatever. It's shorter. It's like being stuck with a boner. I've had this erection for like 5 weeks. How do I deal with it? I'm sorry, dude, but like some stuff, it's just like you can't deal with it on your own. And if you do try, it's going to take like a decade. All right, that's pretty much it, man. Everything else is like done. It's an hour and 30 minutes. I've hit everything that I was going to talk about and all of that. It's also around 11 o'clock too, incidentally. Oh, man.
I did want to respond to that last thing you mentioned. The idea of like, when you
Yeah.
can't do things on your own, like the whole idea of being a Christian, resting in Christ, you're not meant to do it alone. You're meant to rest in Christ. And so when it comes to doing things on your own, we're not meant to be lone wolves. We're meant to have the church, meant to have each other, meant to have community. And whenever you see any story of someone being alone, like you think about loneliness, wilderness, it always comes to engaging with a demon. Like you have Azazel being the demon that the goat of the atonement goes out to. You have Jesus in the wilderness engaging with Satan. You have um, John the Baptist. He's also alone in the wilderness trying to talk about the announcement of God's kingdom. And it's kind of that spiritual aspect of like he's supposed to be the spiritual representative of Elijah. I can only imagine the kind of demons that he probably interacted with or tried to abstain from. The children of Israel in the wilderness, or look at Elijah in the wilderness when he was being lonely and depressed and he doubted God's existence until God sent him food. But like loneliness, God himself told Adam that being alone is not good. And that's why he made Eve for him. So it's
Loneliness
foundational.
is natural. Loneliness is a part of everyone's life. The adult side is a part of everyone's life. Kids are involved in everyone's life in some way, shape, or form. Like these are things that are a part of the human existence or human whatever, human experiment. I don't remember what people call it. The human something.
One. No.
The
Sorry.
spiritual side matters. It's something that you and I have common ground in that we care about this. We just focus on this differently. For you, it's more of a core component, but for me, it's more of an addition where I seek improvement. And I found out the correlation between the gospel, the Christian side, and the men's group is being the best version of yourself and sanctification. There's a point there. The point that people struggle with, and I'll say this again since I already told you, but not to everyone else. You focus on yourself or you focus on God. That's the point there that a lot of people hit. This improvement is going to be approached differently. There's also the physical side too, because I'm going back to gym and I'm dealing with some health issues, mostly with my liver and saturated fat content. That's a part of it as well. Yeah, I'm not trying to cut you off. So I'm sorry. Please continue. I should have let you finish up. That's my fault.
Oh, you're good. You're good. It's 11 o'clock. I think other folks start dropping off as well. But last thing I'll just mention is when it comes to Christianity, like what Jesus taught is that God, religion, is the foundation of everything. I think the Reformed scholastics called theology the queen of the sciences. It's the foundation that leads to everything else. Theology, law, mathematics, those affect every single area of life. And if you don't start with religion, then nothing else has a base to be built off of. And so the reason I'm not the only one. I think it's foundational to being a Christian that God is the foundation of everything.
You could also argue that even if you don't start off with religion, it's going to end there in some way, shape, or form with your death. Because one of the things that people used to deal with on a daily basis was our existence, our beginning, our end. There's a term for it. I can't remember off the top of my head here, but mortality. Our mortality is what people used to focus on. Now people are terrified of that. It's just like the thought of me dying. No, I will never think about that. I was deployed. I was in the army. We who are in the military think about that. It's like you have to go beyond a certain point where it's just like, fine, whatever. I don't care. You're a dead man walking anyway. It's like how people approach this stuff matters. That being said, I do plan on monetizing the evolution video, and some others. I plan on putting stuff there. If you put a comment, cat hairs. Yeah. If you put a comment down below with your information and all that, some extra thoughts, manual, something linking to the church, I would be happy to pin that up here. Same thing for Alan too. Alan, let me know if there's anything there you want to add to the video, okay? Like for me to comment for all of this. This is currently live on YouTube, but I plan on advertising more because everything behind this channel is solid. So
I guess if I'm going to do a shameless plug, Northside PCA in Burlington, North Carolina, a place for for our community to find hope and peace and rest from the tyranny of trying harder, freedom in Christ, to love your neighbor.
The tyranny of trying hard. I love it. I try harder because either I'm bored or because I want something new or I want to challenge myself and see where I can improve on. Because frankly, I'm not satisfied not knowing who I am and not knowing my limits. Obviously, run into a wall a couple of times, you're going to find out your limits in that particular area very quickly. Ow, this hurts, or question mark, or this is uncomfortable, awkward, I don't want to be a part of that. Your limits will look like physical lines. It'll look very painful, or it'll be like you're extending out and there's a drop off a cliff. It's like the boundaries are not all going to be the same. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in here. I appreciate being able to talk to you. I appreciate Alan, who was there. I think he was popping on because he was curious. Other people are curious about this stuff too. I'm gonna have to put down a list of topics as far as that goes. Just yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I think I'll end it here. I appreciate it. Also, my phone is at 19% battery. It was full when I started. Now it's like empty. All right. Let me see here. It is a Thursday. I'm going to be doing this thing with the vets, the ARG vets. They're having a work session, helping out at some ranch or whatever. So I'll be busy working tomorrow after work. Work after work, yeah, fun. But I'm helping out because it's part of a veterans group. So I'm going to be busy tomorrow. I guess I'll see you on Sunday, right?
See you Sunday.
All right. Take it easy and thank you again for everything.
Blessings to you.
How do I end this thing? How do I end it?
Just get